What's going on? I am Jamie Dawn, your professional psychic advisor, success coach, and revolutionary astrologer, bringing you your celestial wisdom video for the week of the winter solstice 2020. So that is December 21st is our winter solstice, and I'm going to take you through some of the transits and energetic levels that you can expect in the next few days. But just keep in mind, this is a pivotal time. Saturn moved into Aquarius on the 16th. Jupiter moved into Aquarius just 2 days before the solstice on the 19th. And we have our great conjunction that is happening on the winter solstice on the 21st in Aquarius with Saturn and Jupiter. And this is a big deal. You've heard many astrologers, if you're following others and myself, that we're talking about this change. I mean, this is a huge cycle, a new cycle in air that is being activated. We're probably not going to see the full effects of it because, I mean, it takes time, and there may not be the, as I like to say, the skies part and angels come and sing to us on the 21st. However, the activation is there. And what do I mean by activation? I often work with activation with initiations. And so when we go through an initiation, which is a discomfort or a situation that we are confronted with that we must face, and we have to move through it, and it forever changes us. Can we just say 2020 is that way? I think we can all agree. So we're now been through this whole activation and initiation of 2020, and with Jupiter and Saturn, and you can watch my series and my video on this YouTube channel as well. But I'm going to just go a little bit deeper and say what is being activated most on this winter solstice is where we can finally feel as though we have some relief when it comes to the heavy physical energies that we have been in. Now, the other thing that is going to be activated, I believe, is that we are going to really start to turn our attention more towards the mental world, more towards how our intuitive nature from the mental perspective and the mental acuity that we have starts to really get activated. Now, the one thing I want to just also point out is that winter solstice is the beginning of winter. It's also our shortest day of the year. The longest is our summer solstice. So it's opposing. It's the opposite of our summer. It's now winter, so it's the shortest day of the year. And it does have a bit of an inspirational quality to it, especially because we're in the middle of the holidays, to really honor our past traditions. But maybe because of this being in Aquarius, which is revolutionary, a little rebellious and innovative, that we may be creating new traditions. We may be rebelling against old traditions and really wanting to start something new. Granted, being isolated, shut down, not being able to travel like we normally might for a holiday to connect with family and friends has caused us to start a new tradition. And it's not to say we will never get back to being together and traveling and all of that. But what we may end up doing is, let's say we'll use Christmas as the holiday, is that we may come back together and enjoy being with each other in the future for Christmas, but maybe the family that gets together also does a Zoom call, if you will, with some family members around the world. Some of you may have already been doing that, but this may become a tradition, right? Or maybe you set up your cameras as you're eating your Christmas dinner and everybody's just kind of eating together all over the world. There's so many ways that this can show up. I would venture to say that this year's Christmas gifts or Hanukkah gifts, any form of gift giving, will most likely have an Aquarian nature to it. So I have a feeling there'll be a lot of new phones and technology, security cameras. Maybe there's subscriptions to various technological companies and things that you can do online. So many Aquarian things that can happen. So something else that I just want to talk about with this particular week. Yes, we have Mercury also moving into Capricorn on the winter solstice. We also have a Mars square Pluto going on. So there's going to be some heated, probably conversations that can happen. So we're going to have to pay attention to that. But I want to bring us back real quick just to the Aquarian nature. And the symbol for Aquarius is the water bearer. Now, Aquarius is an air sign, but it has the image when we're working in a zodiacal way that it looks like ripples or waves of the ocean, right? But it's air. It's like how the air kind of moves across the water. So it's the water bearer. And what I love most, and I was doing some research around the water bearer itself, but Kuan Yin is a representative of the water bearer. And as a deity, she tips the vial of precious elixir of life so that droplets are available to nourish all. And that's, I would venture to say, if anybody who's watching this wants to work with the Aquarian energy, and maybe those Aquarians who are watching have a great resonance with Kuan Yin, work with Kuan Yin, who's this beautiful feminine Buddha when it comes to compassion. Now, the challenge of the water bearer is to be able to contain the emotional nature in a healthy way. So if you think about it, the water bearer is holding this container. And remember, I mentioned that we're in the 12th month, which is the month of the elixir, right? So the elixir within this container is emotional in nature. And when we're working with it, we want to make sure it doesn't spill out to where we just kind of scatter our energy or our emotions go everywhere. But we also need to make sure that this container, if you will, called ourselves, is filled to appropriateness. So it's finding that beautiful mixture, if you will, of how we can take our emotions and express them in a healthy way in order to find wholeness. Because remember, that's what we're here to do. We're here to find wholeness. And this is how we can most effectively and freely work with one another, because we're moving into this time of collaboration and cooperation. And we're also being able to express our individuality within the context of the wholeness, right? And so working with this Aquarian energy is going to have the influence of Jupiter, which says, here's all this emotions and ideas and forward thinking and these visions that we need to put into place. And Saturn's going to say, yeah, we could do all that, except, because Saturn wants to make the rules and it wants to set those boundaries, which is important. Otherwise, Jupiter would get where I was talking about the emotions floating all over the pouring out of the container. Is Saturn says, no, let's keep it within the container. And so we're going to have to work with these ideas and all of the ways that we want to show up and express ourselves as individuals and give, hey, everybody, get on board with this cause or this idea. And yet, in order to take abstract, if you will, in order to really ground our ideas into a reality, which will be fueled with some intuition and passion, we have to be able to stay within our integrity. We have to be able to stay in this place of alignment with our values. Because if we compromise our ideals or integrity for the sake of avoiding conflict or stepping on somebody else, using somebody else in order to get to where we ultimately want to be, I don't know if you guys deal with this, but I've been guilty of getting so attached to an idea that I just move forward. I'm like, if you don't want to join me, fine, I don't care. I'm just going to keep going, right? And we lose others. And I've mentioned this before, but in order for us to create the new reality and to really bring in the change that we are trying to have, we can't really do it alone effectively. Certainly we can make something happen, but this Saturn and Jupiter energy that we're going to be experiencing over the next year to 2 years and even beyond, because it's like a pebble in a pond, it will ripple out for a long time. But what we're working with is being able to do this in a collaborative way. bringing it with others. Because when the relationships are more important, when there's quality versus quantity, that's where we can start to really move agendas forward. And what we're going to be sort of bungee cording, ping ponging about in the next year is going to be my ideal versus the group ideal. So we may be pulled back in occasionally to, I want this, but what does the group want? And we can get very fixed on our own egos or agendas. And yet the best way for us to come back to wholeness is to remind ourselves, does my agenda line up with the bigger vision? Can I set it aside for the sake of the greater goal? Because at the end of the day, it's the vision that will ultimately win out. The other thing I would offer around this winter solstice week, as well as moving forward, I believe we're going to have more information that comes out that wasn't necessarily truth in the past. I believe that we're going to have new facts, new reveals, things that are going to continue to unfold, maybe not exactly all this week, but moving forward, especially as we have a full moon in Cancer at the end of the month, that we're going to have more things that come up and out that we have to check back in with. Does this resonate? Does this feel like truth? Or is this false facts? We've been doing that for a long time. The thing that also this winter solstice week is going to activate for us, especially with the sun in Capricorn, Mercury in Capricorn, and this Mars and Pluto square going on, we're also going to have to take responsibility. That's Saturn and Jupiter taking responsibility for how we are expressing our ideals, the attitudes that we take, the ideals in action, and who we are influencing with them. I have to take full responsibility for the information that I'm sharing on this channel. And if I say something that seems inappropriate or it's not factual, call me out. I need to own it. And I'm responsible for that. If I say something that transforms, transcends, I also have to own that. Transformation is not an easy process. But what we have to do is we have to be willing to continue. We've already started this theme, but we have to continue to work with who have I influenced or impacted or interacted with. And I need to make sure that I not only take responsibility, but I also stay with this process, with this person and or this group until it's time to hand it off. Some relationships, we know they're always working us. Some relationships have a shelf life. And if you are in a process of letting go of someone or a group, then it's now more important for us to be responsible for how we hand that off, how we let that go. If you're the type of person who says, I'm done and walk away, and you just cut it off, I feel as though it's going to come back, that there is no such thing as just totally cutting it off, that you're also going to find that you'll be more at peace, there'll be more growth, there'll be more opportunities that show up in your favor if you're willing to hold hands with the situation until it's time and you know that this person or group has successfully moved to the next phase or the next contract, however you want to look at that. I don't know if I can say it a different way. I hope it's making sense to you guys, but basically, here's an example. If you're looking to relocate, now's the time to say to those in your local community, in the next X amount of months, years, whatever, I'm planning on moving over here. And what needs to happen in order for me to do that is I obviously physically have to get there. So we have to start transitioning or putting a succession plan or start looking at what we are letting go of. And there'll be a little bit of a grieving process. There'll also be a new way in which you relate with each other. Maybe you connected with your local community on a regular basis, that as you start to make this move, you pull your time away, but you put that group or that person in touch with a new leader, a new collaborator, a new mentor, whatever it might be, so that they also can move through the process of letting go in a gentler, more conscious way, maybe a softer way. We're really going to be working with some softness over the next couple of years, really. Saturn's not a soft planet. I get that. However, we we are working towards more consciousness, and I believe that the consciousness of this is to be able to speak to what's true and then create some spaciousness that allows new information to come in, and then you mold that and you work with it. Again, it goes back to that water bearer, that container that's holding this information or this situation. So one other thing I want to point out about this particular week, for those of you who like to use tarot, work with the star card, because that does represent Aquarius in tarot. And the star card, a few keywords that we can be working with, and this applies even if you're not using tarot, but I just love using this divination tool as a way of reflecting some more wisdom and truth inside of us. So when you're working with the star card, and let's say it's upright, then we're looking at hope and faith and purpose. Those are some key words, and renewal, spirituality. If you pull it in a reverse place, then it's pointing to there's a lack of faith, or there's some form of disconnection, maybe feeling of despair. There can also be some self-trust because you're going inward. At least that's how I read reversals, is that that it's more about what's happening internally for us. Now, the star card also has this woman who's kneeling over a pool in the Rider-Waite deck anyways. And most of the other decks have something similar. But, the star card, it has this woman kneeling over a pool of water, and she's holding two containers, one in her left hand, which is the subconscious, and one in the right hand, which is the conscious side. And so she's pouring this water out to nourish the earth. Very Saturn in Aquarius. Let's take this heavy, cold, calculating planet like Saturn, but yet let's pour out the wisdom that Saturn can offer us to create fertility. That's where the greenery around this woman in the tarot deck, the card itself, it shows this fertility, this lusciousness. Now with Aquarius, it's a fertility of mind, of intellect, of ideas, but also of humanitarian efforts. So the other container also pours the water onto the dry land, and it represents the senses. So this is a very grounding card, but also let's keep in mind that if it's reversed, the water still pours out, but it's more internal, and it may be that we're being asked to look at where we've lost hope and faith, that we're questioning the things that gave us a foundation at one point that are no longer serving us. Maybe we need to let them go. Some of you have reported that you're feeling a little disconnected, or you're feeling disengaged or uninspired. So if you're pulling this star card in reverse, that's a good indication that it's time for you to stand on your convictions. Come back. If you're feeling a little disconnected from truth, come back to your values. Look and see where you may have disconnected from that, or your convictions. I'm going to point out something on a personal note, but my father is somebody who stands by his convictions, is very convicting, or convicted, if you will, individual. And that's something that serves him. And I believe that we all have convictions that we should stand by. And the thing that I appreciate most about him, besides the uncompromising part of it, is that it has a sense of security, or a sense of integrity to it, because at least you know where this person stands, even if you disagree with them, right? And he and I have been through a journey around agreeing to disagree, and being able to love each other just for the sake of loving each other versus trying to be right. And I think that's something else that we're going to be working with, especially as we move forward and we're exploring. So Jupiter being a great explorer, we're exploring the deeper truths, but we're exploring it from an intuitive nature, telepathic nature maybe, and using science and technology to back it up, that many of our truths may come through that space. The other thing I just want to point out is that we are also being set up for a time over the next year. I'm just going to plant the seed and I'll talk about it as it becomes more dominant, because this particular solstice week is not going to have a strong influence of it, but we are going to start having this Jupiter Saturn square to Uranus. And remember, Uranus is in Taurus. So I would pay attention to anything earthy that has to deal with our financial systems, our values, self-worth, stock market, housing systems, food, things that are very taurine. There's going to be this square that gets activated throughout 2021 and even into 2022 because of Saturn staying in Aquarius through the next 2.5 years. That when, remember, that square that pops up, it's there to create growth. It does create tension. There is going to be discomfort. I would imagine it, from my view, if you will, that we're going to start seeing an increase in interest rates and taxes and things like that. There's probably going to be a need for more balancing of a budget and that sort of thing. But I think there's going to be a struggle that really shapes us, where our values may be less on the physical nature and more on quality. I'm just gonna keep coming back to that. It comes back to the quality of life. I also want to offer that I had a client session recently that just inspired me. And I just want to thank you so much for everybody who connects with me, because you guys teach me and inspire me as much as I hopefully can do the same for you. But the session, what she reminded me most of was what was important to her, which was being willing to step away from something that she had committed to for the next 2 years, but she was going to miss out on family. She was going to miss out on creating memories. She was going to miss out on enjoying the life that meant the most to her, her values. And when we hung up, I was moved to tears at that reminder of how important quality is versus quantity. So, and I think, 2020 has brought this into view in a more prominent way, is that, who we connect with, how we connect with them, and making the most of it is what's really important. Quality versus quantity. I'm just going to keep saying that. If I like to choose a word, if you will, to embody every year. And this time I'm going to choose that phrase, quality versus quantity. So I invite you all to be inspired, to choose something that resonates with you. Use this time to really suss out what's important to you, and then stand by your conviction. And it's not about getting people to agree. I think that's one of the shadows of this Jupiter, Saturn, and Aquarius that we need to pay attention to. This isn't about like-minded, even though this is a very mental energy that we're entering into. This, we have to keep coming back to, it's like-hearted. One other quick note that I'll just offer to you guys. Cardinal signs. Yes, that would be Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn. You're going to start to see some relief. Thank God. These last couple of years have been heavy, to say the least. And 2020 has definitely been some of the heaviest. So as Saturn and Jupiter move out of the very last degree right now, as I'm recording this, of Capricorn, which is our earthy cardinal sign, and moves into the airy fixed sign of Aquarius, we should start to feel a little bit lighter, a little bit more maybe alive. And some of us may feel like we need to nap for centuries after what we've been through. But look at where you have Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn in your chart. If it's a dominant theme, such as your sun, your rising sign, your moon, that exhaustion level should start to reduce itself over the next couple of weeks and even into the next couple of months. Just please, please, please do not force the natural cycle. We are entering into winter. So here on the Northern Hemisphere, it's a time of darkness. It's a time to withdraw. It's a time to hibernate. My Southern Hemisphere friends, it's time for you to birth something beautiful, to use this time to really initiate what you are so convicted about. What are your values? And just be who you are and allow yourself and this is all that Aquarian, all of us need to take this in. Don't be ashamed of who you are, because the great creator gave you life for a reason. None of us are broken. None of us need fixing. This is about integrating. And that's what I believe the age of Aquarius, the new cycle, if you will, of all of this energy is coming in to remind us of that we all have value because we have breath, because we have life. Don't be ashamed of that. There's nothing to fix with it. So keep integrating that. When something shows up that's a shadow, see how you can make it into light. See how you can take the light and use the shadow as a tool for awakening. Every moment, every breath is an invitation to pay attention and to wake up that much more. All right, you guys, have such a great week. I look forward to connecting with you. Find me at jamiedawn.com when to listen. And just so you know, if you're still watching this video, a little note, Oliver Gutorm and I have a holiday special at 12 Radio, and it is called Holiday Messages from the Gatekeepers, and we're going to be doing it by sign. So tune in if you can at 12 Radio. It will be aired on the 18th of December. Excuse me, the 21st, I believe. But I look forward to connecting with you guys, and have such a great week.